Working for Plaquemines Parish government, I got really interested in the coast because I went all over the whole parish in a boat taking water samples. I got to see it every day. Every day I was going out and I was seeing different landmarks. And then all of a sudden there was no land 30 years later in the end of your career, you know. They're not here. They're not here.
This is the top fishery in North America. It's the top wintering grounds for ducks, and it's all going away.
No, well, because no wetlands equals no ducks. That's obvious.
These barrier islands are eroding at rates of something like up to 60 feet per year. When you look at the maps, it's just a thin beach line, but in reality, you can see where they've been rebuilding the beaches all throughout this area to try to preserve this bit of life for a little longer. The reason I started working on this project was essentially environmental communication. I think these images can be used by the scientific community to kind of raise awareness about how this landscape works.
Great flight the other day. That was cool. Yeah. A lot of my work has been down here. For me as a scientist, I very closely link education and research. Part of research is to educate people. I collaborate with some folks from NASA, and they can calculate a vegetation index, how much vegetation's there. But one of the problems with satellites is you don't really know exactly what they're looking at, whether it's algae or whether it's marsh grasses.
Yeah, I mean, from 50 feet up, you can tell what type of vegetation it is exactly. And
right, in a way that would be much more precise than you could get from an airplane.
South Louisiana feels like you're in some kind of remote wilderness until you get up in the air, and then you can see that you're just surrounded by miles and miles of oyster leases, shrimpers trawling. The horizon is just dotted with endless oil rigs. Everything is exploited in one way or another. Everywhere you look, you see these oil and gas pipeline canals. Those canals are what allowed saltwater intrusion to penetrate so far north and then killed the vegetation, which was holding the soil in place, and then that's what really triggered most of the wetland loss.
Deep in the woods lies the shadowlands, where your brother bear is weeping his deepest lament.
I've met old people down in this area that tell me this used to be meadow where they grazed cattle, and now it's just open water with the edges of the canals remaining. When I started this project, I had in my mind a handful of images that would tell the story of wetland loss. And then experiencing this place drew me in and kept me exploring. It's really become a process of going out and looking for, like, magic.
Where'd y'all live on the bayou down in Dulac?
Across from your grandmother?
Right there on Coast Guard?
Yes, it's no longer there. You know, you wouldn't have been able to know what it looked like. I'm still looking for a picture of that little old house.
So this is my great-grandpa here, right?
Yes.
Wow.
And everybody that's there is gone.
My grandparents fought a long time through hurricane after hurricane, but when Rita came through, my grandpa lost his boat, and so they moved further inland. It's weird to not gather there for every Christmas and not be there for the boat blessings with the band on the levee. And now my daughter won't know about that. So that's a loss. It's a loss to me, but it's a bigger loss to my daughter. And I can relate to that when I hear my Aunt Karine talking about something that I don't really know about, but she can tell me was my family's land.
The whole point was just so beautiful. These oak trees were so green and pretty. Oh man, there's almost none left. All of this was just trees, oak trees, all over the place. It was just beautiful. They were so thick that it was just leaves on the ground. Oh. It's like feeling death around you already because it's gonna be taken away from you. So it's sad, and just to want to stay where you know that this is your land, this is your people.
Where's the bayou? I can't see the bayou.
It takes our local people to band together and do as much as they can to learn instead of just caving in under these big industries. And it's hard, it's scary, but what's more scary, that or losing the places that we have?
We're way out here, we're still feeling the effects of colonization as indigenous people, trying to hang on to our culture, our language, our value systems, things like that.
I'm a camp counselor at the Native Youth Community Project camp. For us to expose them to college communities while also exposing them to the land and how our culture has been molded through where we live. Does anybody have anything that they have maybe taken that they didn't know before about coastal issues and our people living along the land?
The soil was more than just soil under our ancestors. And like more and more of our heritage and our ancestors are like going away with the water.
That's a great point, yeah.
I think it's interesting how if we just open up the Mississippi in a controlled way, all like the sediments would just rebuild the land.
Yeah, you guys are at a vital point in your lives right now where whether it be learning more about it and going into a field that'll help this coast and our way of life, but also about passing on these traditions that you're learning. What's going on here can relate to all bayou communities, all coastal communities, and I think that other communities can see the immediate need to save our land, but don't really see how the loss of this land will also be the loss of our culture. The further inland we must push, it's going to change our ways of life. Now's the time to preserve that as much as we can.
A freshwater diversion is a gate in a levee. And the idea of that is to restart the natural land building processes that originally built the Mississippi River Delta. The Delta was built when sediments from continental US were delivered to the coastal landscape. When it hit the ocean, the flow slowed down and all of the mud in the muddy Mississippi River settled out. Now, the Mississippi River sits largely behind levees, and so it doesn't bring mud to the coast in the way that it used to. Diversions are designed to mimic that process.
How deep is the water, like 10 centimeters or something?
Yeah.
Let's try to get it in 1 full meter. So we have about 60 centimeters of deposition since the diversion opened. And the diversion opened in 2002. So we're looking at, yeah.
An inch and a half or so a year?
Yeah.
The diversion packet, we think, may be even a little thicker over here. What do you think is changed?
I think there's a lot more trees.
I think you're right. And if you're talking a meter in, what, 15 years, this was probably open water or quasi-open water, so you had to fill this in high enough that you can get trees there. The projections are that river diversions will build tens to maybe low numbers of hundreds of square miles. They are long-term, one of the more efficient ways to build land. The 2017 master plan has a diversion in this area, right? There's two, so makes you think it's not a bad area for it.
Yeah.
But any plan is going to be a series of trade-offs. If you brought a diversion into an area, you might change it to a system that was dominated by freshwater species. What does that mean for people that make a living off of like shrimping and oystering? If we're going to think about wetland and coastal restoration, it needs to be a multifaceted process that doesn't just look at wetlands, but also the benefits to people.
When they built the levee, they stopped all the fresh water from dumping onto this side of the levee. On the marsh side, it became salt water, which the brownies, the Brazilian shrimp, it thrives in salt water. And back here became a unique place for it. We can catch 3,000 pounds in maybe 6 hours. So when they put the siphon right up the road, it flooded it with fresh water, and it wiped out the brown season. But it made the white shrimp season better. So it swapped from being a brownie season to more a white shrimp season. When they first started about putting a diversion down here, I was saying it can help us. Outside the bayous, the salinity was on the high side. The fresh water, we can use some if they manage it. But if they coming on the scale of what they telling me, I'm realizing it's way too much.
I'll tell you what, the first day trawling season opened, I caught the net in the wheel. I jumped in the water to take the webbing out. I thought it was in the river. That's how fresh the water was.
Right.
That's how come all them oysters in the back of Empire and birds are dying.
Yeah, I know that. Right now, we're hitting the record flood with the river, and it's already changing our fishing industry. It's having an impact of the size of a Katrina to us. We have a crop that we can't even sell. The shrimp is small enough to fit on a quarter, and you got room to see the rim of the quarter. If fishing keep declining, I have two other options that I would be venturing into. Some farming on the land or running tug for my brother. We started off with it as a shrimp boat. The first job of the Daniel Monique, it still had the skimmer frames on it for the shrimp. From there, he grew to 5 boats. He's got the Daniel Monique, the Uncle Robert, the Uncle Blue, the Silver Dollar, the Mr. Joe, the Miss Elma, and the Uncle John. Washer and dryer.
Who does the cooking?
Everybody takes a turn, and whoever turns out the best will be nominated to cook from then on.
And who's the best cook?
Second living quarters right behind you. Another living quarter. I prefer fishing over the tug, but you know, sometimes we gotta give it up to make ends meet, you know. I would always keep my boat. My mind would always be, when can I go back to commercial fishing? It's not, I'm gonna stay here.
For Katrina, the water went over the levee and I had sand in my mailbox. They asked me if I was happy, even though my house got flooded. Oh, here it is.
Good morning. I'm so happy to be at the Bohemian Spillway today, where Mother Nature rules.
Working for Plaquemines Parish government, I got really interested in the coast because I went all over the whole parish in a boat taking water samples. I got to see it every day. Every day I was going out and I was seeing different landmarks. And then all of a sudden there was no land 30 years later and the end of your career, you know. They're not here. They're not here.
This is the top fishery in North America. It's the top wintering grounds for ducks, and it's all going away.
No, well, because no wetlands equals no ducks. That's obvious.
You know, Albertine got into this game before me, and I was so envious that she had a voice and I didn't. people don't understand. When I camped out as a kid, where I slept in my sleeping bag on a ridge in the swamp. So 2 foot underwater now. And all the giant ancient oak trees, they're all dead. Because
like
salt
salt.
water's coming in, put them underwater, smother them.
When you're putting river water into the system, you're getting the nutrients and the sediments in. Now you ain't sank yet, right? It's hard as a rock. But we're about to take you on the other side over there, Death Valley, Carlisle style. If you look behind me, you got marsh to the next ridge, and after that it's open water for a ways. And it just keeps opening up. The tide is taking the land out, the grass. So I would say in the next 10 years, I probably wouldn't ever be able to drive back here. It's sinking so fast. It'll be a thing of the past.
We've lost 2,000 square miles of land in the last 70 years. We probably lost 10,000 square miles of habitat because of saltwater intrusion. Everybody looks at the land, but you have to look at the fish species and how far they've gone inland. They're 100 miles inland now, the saltwater species. Well, wherever those are, chances are the aquatic vegetation is gone as well.
You gotta divert some river water, you got to. It's the heartbeat, it's the vein, it's the pulse. When you go look at it, it's alive and kicking.